What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Devin, and man, does it feel good to be back. And today I just wanted to come to you guys with a quick video about the GoPro Hero 10. I have been loving shooting with this over the past month or so. I've had the chance to shoot wakeboarding, mountain biking, BMX, and if you've seen any of my past videos, I've got tutorials on slow motion and things like that. Well, they stepped up the slow motion big time on the Hero 10, shooting 4K at 120 frames per second and 2.7K at 240 frames per second. I wanted to share some of my settings with you guys when shooting slow motion. Now I'm working on another video talking about all my settings and my presets that I like to use on the GoPro Hero 10 so I can quickly access whatever settings I need to switch to. But for today's video, we're just gonna talk about my slow motion settings, and hopefully you guys get something good out of this video. So with that said, let's jump into it. So on the Hero 10, you have the option to shoot 5K 60 frames per second, which you can slow your footage down to about half speed or a little bit more, especially if you're editing in 24 frames per second, which I typically do. Sometimes, depending on what it is, I'll edit to a 24 frame timeline or a 30 frame timeline. But you can shoot up to 5K at 60 frames per second and get really good looking footage there. But what I have been shooting and enjoying quite a bit is the 4K 120 frames per second. It is incredible. Or if you want to step it up even more, you can shoot at 2.7K at 240 frames per second. It looks incredible. It looks really good, don't get me wrong. But for most things that I shoot, the 4K 120 is the sweet spot, and you do lose a little bit of quality at the 2.7K 240 frames per second. Now, like I said, don't get me wrong, I do shoot in that on occasion, but typically when I want to shoot slow-mo, I go to 4K 120 frames per second, and it has been really nice. So with that said, let's dive into my 4K 120 frames per second settings. So when shooting 4K, obviously I'm in 4K 120 frames per second. The lens that I like to shoot on is wide. Hyper smooth I leave on standard. There's no real need to go to boost because it's shooting so slow that any jitters typically get smoothed out due to the high frame rate. Then scrolling down to the Protune settings, it's really important that you set your bitrate to high. Shutter speed I typically leave to auto, which in most situations where you're gonna wanna shoot high frame rates, hopefully you have a ton of light, because if you don't, it's not gonna look that good. So bright, sunny conditions or golden hour conditions is gonna give you your best results. If it's overcast or the sun has set, you're not gonna get that good of footage. So just keep that in mind. You need good lighting, and you can kind of let the shutter do its thing. Now, if you want to be really accurate and you have an ND filter for the GoPro, which I do not have yet, you can set that accordingly, and so you would set that to 240 frames per second, and that would technically be the correct shutter speed. But the GoPro does really well at choosing an auto shutter speed. When utilizing stabilization, it's good to just let it have a high shutter. There's some science behind it. I've watched some other videos, and they say that basically you just need a high shutter speed for the stabilization to work correctly. For EV comp, usually it shoots a little bit on the bright side, so I will usually do negative 0.5. White balance, you can either set it accordingly to whatever you are shooting. So if you're shooting in bright sunny conditions, it's most likely 5500 Kelvin. or you can just let it be auto. The GoPro does a really good job at choosing an auto white balance. Now ISO, again, you should have plenty of light. So I typically like to leave my ISO as low as possible, and that will give you the cleanest image. But you also want it to be bright enough that it utilizes any stabilization and gives you the high frame rate that you need. So I usually set my ISO minimum at 100, and then I'll set my ISO max at 400. And that seems to give me plenty of range, and I haven't had any issues yet. Sharpness, you can go either low or medium, depending on if you're gonna edit it and post later, then go ahead and shoot low. But if you don't plan on adding sharpness in the editing room later, then go ahead and shoot on medium. I actually end up just shooting it on medium most of the time, and I think it looks pretty good. Sometimes I will shoot on low if I plan on really tweaking my footage. Color, GoPro has 3 color profiles in the new GoPro Hero 10. You can either shoot flat, natural, or vibrant. And I actually really like natural. It looks nice and clean. If you want to do some color grading, then you can go ahead and shoot flat. A couple extra bonus tips for shooting slow motion is get as close to the subject as you can and still filling the frame and keeping everyone safe, obviously. But that makes for some really cool action shots. If you're really far away, it's not gonna do any good. So definitely get as close as possible. That's gonna help your shots look really cool. And yeah, get out there and hopefully you can shoot some really cool slow motion footage with your GoPro. Now this also applies, these settings apply for the GoPro Hero 9. Now obviously you can't shoot 4K 120, but you can shoot 2.7K 120, and the same principles apply. So go out there, have some fun, shoot. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave it a thumbs up. I've got other videos coming along diving into more settings, doing some comparisons with the Insta360 and the older GoPros. So definitely subscribe if you want to see some of those, and we're gonna have some fun. So with that said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video.